talent in there, and it's up to Mike Brown, it's up to the front office to figure out, and it's up to Karl Anthony Towns as well, to figure out a way that he can be consistent, whatever that is, to figure out that level of consistency, because this is the worst version of Karl Anthony Towns that we've seen here with the Knicks. He's always kind of been in and out a little bit and inconsistent, but this is the most prolonged problems that you've seen from Karl Anthony Towns. So it was in there last year, even though it was still, inconsistent at times. It's up to the coaching staff and the front office to figure out a game plan and be able to get Karl Anthony Towns on board. That's what coaching is, right? Taking the talent that you have and getting the best results that you can get out of that talent. And right now, in regards to Karl Anthony Towns, the Knicks are not doing that.
No. Top, you have a question for him, or?
No, I absolutely agree. But again, you see how different this team is when everybody's consistently involved and the ball is moving. You saw at least in that third quarter where they were getting a lot of fast break points, but the ball was moving in that third quarter, and it allowed everybody to get open and allowed a lot of open shots. Again, when it's not running through just one guy and you don't have a lot of guys that are stagnant around the court, everything flows. And I think that's what Mike Brown is trying to preach, where it was like Tom Thibodeau was just trying to let one guy in Jalen Brunson dictate the entire offense. You have Mike Brown saying, no, it's not just going to be him. I need everybody to move the ball, and whoever's open or whoever's hot is going to get the touch, and we're going to score like that within a quick transition. So I do agree with that. And again, if you can get that consistently, especially after what we saw tonight, this team would be much different.
Well, Top, what you said, I mean, the Knicks now are 10-0 on the season when recording 30 or more assists. This is a stat I give out all the time. Go back to last year, they're now 33-3 when recording 30 or more assists in a game. When they get over 30 assists, it's almost an automatic win. Now, the question becomes is, how do we get this game in and game out? Because there was a period riding up to the NBA Cup, we were averaging almost 29 assists a game. But then after that, it wasn't after the Cup, it was a little bit after that, maybe after Christmas, it just started coming down. The ball stuck. Guys weren't moving. It was a lot of ISO heavy ball. And we obviously watched the results of that, a 2-9 stretch, getting our butts whipped in San Antonio. We saw that. How can Mike Brown make this team be more like the team that gets a 30 assists a game? Do we got to bring another secondary ball handler in? Or do we just got to, make plays for other guys, get OG more involved? Again, OG is what he is too. He's been in the league a long time. I don't think he's ever going to be a 25-point per game guy. He's just not that. But you can maximize the efficiency you got at OG and Mikal, like we saw tonight. I mean, today was excellent. Again, Jalen Brunson, 13 points. Karl Anthony Towns, 8 points. And I know Cat had 22, 23 rebounds. That's great. But when you see these other guys contribute like that, that's a big deal to me. And hopefully the Knicks can continue to turn the corner. So, that's where I'm at right now. I'm very happy, but I still have to see the Knicks do their job the next 4 games, 5 games, whatever it is, before the trade deadline, before I really go out and pull the trigger, because I don't want to waste, a lot on bringing in a player. I'm not giving up draft picks for a back, for a Jose Alvarado. Right. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm at.
Good thing the Knicks don't really have any draft picks to give away. I mean, they kind of already went all in. And look, I'm not saying that Cat's not a problem, but he's the Knicks' problem. Like, how many teams do you think are lining up and saying, hey, you know what? We can go get Karl Anthony Towns right now. You know what I mean? Like, there's not that many teams, and it's going to be one of those trades. If you trade him, you're going to be trading away your problem, and you're going to be getting whatever team's problem. Like, it's going to be a problem for a problem. So I think the Knicks are kind of stuck with Cat, and it's about trying to figure out. And it does seem like there's nobody's really been able to put a finger on it in terms of the reporting, but it seems like there's a disconnect between the coach and Cat, some of the players and Cat. I don't know if it's all on him. If he's the one common denominator, you'd have to kind of blame him in terms of the relationships. But I think that's a Knick problem that they're going to have to figure out. Nobody's going to come in here and save them.
No, nobody's doing us any favors. And like you said, it could be a problem for a problem. Like, it's probably, you might get a good player, but you're probably going to have to take on another player with a really bad contract, whether that's a Jeremy Grant, whether that's a Jordan Poole, one of those. That's how I see it. I don't see us getting Giannis anyway for Karl Anthony Towns. Even if we give them every swap from now into 2040, I just don't see it.
Right. Like if you're Milwaukee, like if you put Giannis on the open market, like the only way Giannis gets to New York is he demands, hey, I only want to be traded to New York. And the Bucks, for some reason, say, okay, we'll only trade you to New York. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like if you're a fan of the Milwaukee Bucks, you're like, you just cut our throats. Like we could have gotten a whole bunch of draft picks and maybe a young player or two and started the process of rebuilding, which is probably going to take the next decade anyway because you're in Milwaukee. So, I don't see the Knicks getting Giannis anytime soon.
No, I don't. I don't either. I can't see it. Let me ask you this: do you think, as presently constituted, let's say we had a little piece, something like that, you think we could? Do you really think we could get out of the East? I mean, I'm still not sold. I think Detroit is better. I think even if we run into the Celtics or the Sixers, they kind of scare me, because they could play strong. They're very well coached, especially Boston. And Boston has a bunch of players there deep. And then when you get Philadelphia, I mean, they got a bunch of, Maxey and Edgecombe, and these guys run up and down the floor. They play at a different pace. I could see those series going 7 games. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Knicks got knocked out by one of those 3 teams. I really wouldn't. So I can't say right now the Knicks can win the East. Maybe if they get lucky. I just think Detroit is head and shoulders better. And when it comes to Boston and Philly, yeah, we could beat them, but it won't be easy. That's all, that's where I'm at.
Well, I mean, look, last year, the NBA playoffs at this point, it's not easy for anybody. Even the great Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, like they got to the finals last year and it was 7 games. And if what's his name doesn't go down, who knows how that series turns out. So it's going to be a battle. Even if you get an opening round series where you win it fairly quickly, a sweep, a gentleman's sweep, whatever, the rest of the series are going to be battles the rest of the way. Like that's why they call it the second season, man. Nobody's winning series in sweeps or in 5 games consistently anymore. So I think it'll have to depend on how I still think the Knicks are the most talented team top to bottom in the East. They've not necessarily played consistently over the course of the season. But, like last year, they didn't really, play all that consistently, especially against the good teams. And then they got into the playoffs, and it was a different story until they ran into the Pacers. So I still have faith. I still think they are the most talented team. But you're right. I mean, it's not like it's a cakewalk either.
No.
Gordon, who would be your wild card in terms of the Knicks, a player on the Knicks, and then give me your wild card in the East? Like, who do you think everybody's kind of sleeping on that you see kind of coming?
I mean, I look at the Sixers, but the Sixers always kind of tempt you in the regular season. You know what I mean? You look at the talent, especially the young guys, and then you get to the playoffs and Embiid, pees down his leg. So I would probably say the Celtics, especially if Tatum, I don't know what the status of his injury is, but if he were able to come back and give them anything in the playoffs, I guess that would probably be the team that would worry me the most because I think that they are a well-run organization and a well-coached team. So, but I still think that the Knicks are the better team. But again, last year I thought the Knicks were going to get smoked by the Celtics, and I turned out to be completely wrong. So hopefully this time I'm right.
How do you feel about the Knicks, over the last season and a half? Let's be perfectly honest. If we take out the little 4 or 5 game stretch in between that time when we went and won the cup and we knocked out Orlando, beat Toronto, and then beat San Antonio. You kind of take that out of it. For the most part, the Knicks really don't beat contenders. Do you think?
Well, I mean, last year they didn't either. And then, they got to the playoffs. Look, I think that this is a veteran group. And I think when you have a veteran group who has had, not the ultimate success, obviously, they've not gotten to a finals, but, the playoffs are now kind of an expectation for this team. I think that those teams sometimes get a little bored during the regular season because it is so long and it is such a grind, and they won the cup. And I think that that's why they kind of hit the skids after that for a little while. Now, look, it's not all perfect. I think that there are some things going on behind the scenes that maybe we don't know about, but I still have very high hopes for this team come playoff time. I think they're going to start to get this thing pointed in the right direction because at the end of the day, they know this is on them, right? Like we can all say that Mike Brown has got to get them to the NBA Finals. They got to get themselves to the NBA Finals. Like they got their guy Tibbs ousted last year with the loss that they had. And I'd have to think that the players were on board with that because if the players had demanded that Tibbs stayed, I think that maybe there would have been a little tougher decision to move off the coach if the players were demanding and banging on the table for Tibbs to stay. So, look, if they don't make the NBA Finals this year, I think people will blame Mike Brown and they'll have a lot of revisionist history. But at the end of the day, it'll be on the players not living up to what the expectations were, because it wasn't the expectation of the fans, the media. It was the expectations of the organization to say we are an NBA Finals team, and the only thing that's holding us back is the coaching.
Right, right. Do you
Agree.
still go ahead, Tup.
No, I was saying, I agree. At the end of the day, it's kind of why I told Eddie previously, as much as Mike Brown is going to get a lot of hit for it because he is the head coach, Mike Brown was kind of put in a situation where it's like, here, go win us a chip because that's where we're at. Unlike Tom Thibodeau, where Tom Thibodeau kind of had to build it from within and
Mm-hmm.
get us out of the mud. Mike Brown was kind of put in a situation was like, you got to go get us a chip now, where he didn't really formally know Jalen Brunson. He didn't really know much of Cat. Like he had to figure. He even said himself, I gotta wait and see. I put guys in certain situations to see what they could give me because he was still trying to figure them out. So I think it would be more on the players because they've kind of gelled already. They kind of know each other. Where Mike Brown is still trying to figure that out from a coaching perspective. So I absolutely agree.
Yeah, I mean, again, just I worry about this team when it comes to playing physical teams. Like that's been the worry for me. It's almost like that's the book on the Knicks. You play physical, especially with Brunson. You kind of double him up. You make
Mm-hmm.
him earn, every step on the court. That worries me. So I still, right now, I'm not sold that this team has turned the corner from the 2-9 stretch. Again, it's 4-0. It's great. And tonight was a statement win. I have to say that. I have to admit it. But I really need to see them beat contenders for me to say, okay, this team has truly turned a corner. Okay, we can do this. And Gordon, you're right. Yes, they did the same thing last season, and we beat Boston, and we beat Detroit. But I just wonder, is some of that mojo gone? Karl-Anthony Towns now sits at the end of games. Like, this is our highest paid player. He's sitting at the end of the games. That's what worries me. And that's what worries me down the stretch.
Well, look, I mean, to me, the biggest concern about the Knicks is one that you can't predict. It's injuries and health, because the Knicks have some guys who are injury prone. OG's injury prone. Mitchell Robinson takes one wrong step and he's gone for a month. We've seen Brunson go down in the playoffs looking like, oh my God. And then he's somehow amazingly able to come back in those series and play. So, and, other guys on the team as well get dinged up. Cat's been dinged up here and there. So, that would be the main concern that I have. To me, the regular season is a testing ground. Like it's about figuring it out. It's almost like spring training, and the real season is the playoffs. And if you know you're going to the playoffs, let's figure out everything we got to figure out now. Do I feel great where the Knicks are? No, because I thought that this regular season was going to be the kind of, hey, let's sit back, win 60 games, and roll to the playoffs as the number one seed. And it's not been that so far. And there was an adjustment period baked into this with a new coach. But the deeper we get into the season, it seems like we got more problems. So that doesn't make me feel great either. But I still have faith that at the end of the day, the NBA is a talent league and talent wins. And the Knicks have, I think, the most talent in the Eastern Conference. But it's not overwhelming, and it's going to depend game in, game out come playoff time.
Yeah, and also too, one of my other worries, and I might sound like a nervous Nelly, and I'm sorry if I'm coming across that way, but one of my concerns, because I'm sort of a pessimist, Gordon, when it comes to the Knicks, but one of my concerns is the Knicks might have to play a little defense at the trade deadline. Let's say, Detroit has all their picks. Boston has some players they could move, they could get better. And Philadelphia, the same thing. I believe they got a couple picks that they can trade, get better. I worry about those teams improving, and then the Knicks face them in the playoffs, and even the Miami Heat. Miami Heat could come out and get Giannis, and now that changes the whole trajectory of the Eastern Conference. Do the Knicks got to play a little defense when it comes to this trade deadline? Like, I kind of think they do, even if it's just as simple as adding a bench piece. That's cool, but I think they got to be 100%, putting in their chips here because other teams are getting better too.
Absolutely. And look, the window for the Knicks is now, right? I mean, you talk about some of these other teams, the Pistons are going to be good. I think the Pistons are still another year away, and they got to go through the playoffs and the battle of that and all that type of stuff. If the Celtics don't get Tatum back this year, they're going to have him back for next year. So, that's going to be a problem down the road. This year was built to be the year for the Knicks to get to the finals. And what happens after this year, that's a problem. That's tomorrow's problem. So if it means Giannis or it means some other trade, that's fine. But this year, there's no team. I don't think there's a team in sports right now that has a clearer cut line of what success is this year than the Knicks. If you don't get to the finals for any reason, coaching, injury, performance, whatever, this season will be deemed a failure based on the fact that they fired Tibbs after last year and reached the Eastern Conference Finals in the first time in forever.
Yeah. Do you think that was a mistake?
No, I mean, look, at the time I thought that, you give him another run. Like, if you keep progressing, I'm going to give you another chance. But in fairness, like, Leon Rose has built up a good level of credit with me as a sports fan. I was not a fan of the hire when he made it. Wasn't a fan of the Tibbs hire when he made it. But you know what? If you go out and you show me progress and you show me that you have a better read of the situation than I do, then you start to build up a little bit of credit with me. So, like the Josh Hart trade. When he made the Josh Hart trade, I'm like, it's a fine little piece, but it won't be. It turned out to be a huge piece. When they made the trade for OG, that was a very 50-50 trade at the time. And I think people feel a lot better about that trade in the days since. Same thing with they got the best version of Brunson, right? Like, as good as Brunson was with Dallas in that short stretch, he's been far better here. So I allow, people that show me that they have a better read of the situation than I do. I tend to believe them. But I was not a fan of the Cat move. I thought they paid way too high a price for Mikal Bridges, although I like Bridges more than I like the Cat move. But the Tibbs move, I was willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. But I was not crazy about, like, I thought when they fired Tibbs, it was going to be, well, we know who we want, right? It's going to be Jason Kidd for sure. It's going to be this guy, that guy. They didn't really have a plan. And it was almost like they said, you know what? Anybody can coach this team better than Tibbs can. And that I don't agree with. And I think we're starting to see that a little bit now.
No, because Tibbs got the best 2 seasons of Karl-Anthony Towns' career. Last year and his last year in Minnesota, I believe. Those are Karl-Anthony Towns' best seasons. And to fire him because, Mikal Bridges complained about minutes and Deuce complained about minutes, it was a mistake. I think it was a mistake. And again, I was not a Tibbs lover or anything like that. But, your second best option, you just got the All-Star team out of. And it looks like Mike Brown really doesn't know what to do with Karl-Anthony Towns. I'm not.
It might all be part of a master plan, but boy, oh boy, it's well hidden right now. If it's a master plan, like, we still got time. There's no need to panic just yet. But yeah, it doesn't seem like there's a real connection there, and it does kind of feel like the organization is getting a little fed up with him.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I don't want to keep you too long. Do you have enough time?
I'm not going anywhere. What do I got to do?
So, Gordon, let me ask you about yourself. How did you get started, if you don't mind, in the business?
All right. So
you're from Queens, right?
What's that?
You're from Queens, right?
Yeah, I was born in Queens. I got raised on Long Island, and now I live in Jersey.
Okay.
I was a student. Didn't really know what I wanted to do with. I went to college, liberal arts. Tried to figure it out along the way. I went to St. John's University, and I saw that there was a sports broadcasting course.
Really?
I said, hey, I like sports, so let me try that. So sure enough, I tried that. The guy who was doing the course at the time was a guy by the name of Ed Ingles, who was the sports director at WCBS 880 Radio at the time. And his first day in the class, he said, I'm looking for interns. So the deal was, with an internship, you had to be in Manhattan, in the office at 5 a.m., 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Okay. And most people, most college students are closer to coming home at 5 a.m. and going to work at 5 a.m. So I got an internship and then kind of parlayed that into a company by the name of Sports Phone back in the day, which existed before the days of FAN. You used to call up like a recorded service and get a phone call. There's actually a book about it. There's a book about Sports Phone right here. It was like a big thing back in the day. Really got a lot of people's careers started. I'm trying to think of right now. Howie Rose started at the Sports Phone. Steve Torrey started at Sports Phone. A ton of people started at Sports Phone. I think
So
Michael
what is it,
Kay
like
started
answer
at
the
Sports
calls?
Phone for a little while. And then I parlayed that into getting, actually on the air with different places and, just kind of, almost like Tarzan swinging from vine to vine. That's the way I've kind of figured out my career. Just there's not really been a whole great plan, but it's worked out so far.
Did you have to ever go around the country or anything like that? Or
People told me that, and the thing you find out about broadcasting. And then look, I'm a dinosaur. I understand that. You know what I mean? Like this is not going to pertain to anybody nowadays. But back in the day, that's what they would tell you. To get experience, you had to go to these little tall, small cities in Ohio or Georgia or this place or that place. And I thought to myself, you know what? Like I don't think that I'm anything special, but the jobs that I want are here. So
Right.
I decided to just stay here and just kind of figure it out from there. And I'm kind of happy that I did because, I never had to, like I think my strength is knowing this market and knowing these teams. And, if I went to Ohio, I'm sure I could figure it out, or Iowa or Idaho or wherever the hell I would have went. I would have figured it out, but this is what I wanted to do. So I just stayed here, and at least so far it's worked out.
What do you think your big break was, Gordon?
I'm still waiting on it. You know what I mean? I'm hoping that it's going to come here sooner or later.
I mean,
I don't think that I don't think that I've had one really per se. You know what I mean? I think I've had some good opportunities. And the thing that I realize is that like 1,000 people could do what I do. I've just been fortunate enough to get some opportunities that other people didn't get. I like to think that I bring something unique in terms of a sense of humor or a different kind of take that everybody else is saying one thing, and I'm definitely a contrarian in that kind of way. So I bring something different to the table there. But I'm still hoping for my big break. I got the lotto numbers in my back pocket. That's going to be my big. I want to win the Powerball. That will be my big break. That's what I'm hoping for.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
Yeah, right.
What? If you had to, what advice would you give to anybody? These content creators, myself, Top. What advice would you give us? Because you're on WFAN.
Right.
You have a great voice. You have a great personality. I've listened to you on the overnights, and I love your show. I know Al too. I know Al.
Right.
Sure. I listen to him, and he's great. And what advice would you give to guys like?
Well, look, as I said, I'm a dinosaur. So back when I started, you had to get the job to get the platform, right?
Okay.
Nowadays, you got to get the platform to get the job. So like the guardrails and the gatekeepers are gone. And I teach a class at Montclair State for broadcasters, and I tell them, the number one thing that you have going in your favor is you got this little rectangle in your pocket that can do amazing things and reach people. So it's almost like a stand-up comedian, right? Like when a stand-up comedian starts, a lot of times when they start out in their career, they're mimicking other comedians that they grew up loving, and you have to kind of develop your own voice. And by doing this kind of stuff, get on and get a YouTube channel, get a TikTok account, Instagram Reels, Twitter, whatever. There's 1,000 different things for you to get in there and practice your craft, right? Sharpen your sword in the darkness, as Keith McPherson would say. And look, when you first start out, you don't have to post it. You don't have to put it anywhere outside of your own phone in your memory or in the cloud or whatnot. You don't necessarily have to post it. But get used to doing it. Get used to reading on screen. Get used to talking and giving your opinion about things, and find out what's unique about you. Everybody's got something unique about them that they can bring to this equation. And what you notice about social media, especially TikTok, is there's no real unique experiences, right? Like if you come up with something and you think it, and this goes back to the stand-up comedians. Like I love George Carlin. And the reason why I love George Carlin was he would do a section of his act where it was talking about big things, but then he'd have a section talking about the common things that we all know, but nobody ever talked about, right? And you get into your car and all of a sudden the radio's super loud from the last time you were in your car, or how anybody who's driving slower than you is an idiot. Anybody who's driving faster than you is a maniac. Like all these things that we all think, but nobody's, has only George Carlin could come up with the things to say. So tap into whatever that is, right? Like things that you see and you feel, there's probably other people out there that feel the same thing, but they're not making the content that you are. So you got to go about doing your thing and putting it out there. And if you do it consistently enough, it's the type of thing where if I told you don't ever forget about a broadcasting career, right? Like forget about it. but you're gonna make content anyway, that's the person who should be making content, because you're making it because you love it, and that's just what you do. You talk about sports and you're putting it out there. And if you do that long enough, you're gonna get a break.
All right. All right. What what do you think is different now from when you came? Obviously, social media, but
Yeah.
what is different? Like how, like you see guys like Keith McPherson and Al Cintron, they kind of just been callers and kind of did it on their own.
Mm-hmm.
What is the difference to separate you from everybody else? How do you go about doing that?
Well, look, I think it's different for everybody. One thing about broadcasting, you could ask 10 people how they got to where they are, and they're going to give you 10 different stories. So, I said I didn't leave New York. There's probably going to be a bunch of people who said, I went to Idaho or Indiana or wherever. So there's 1,000 different ways to go. It's about being authentic, though, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Being somebody who people feel like they can relate to, even if they don't necessarily agree with you. They feel like they can relate to your point of view, the way you describe it, the way you make them see things, the way you make them laugh about things, whatever it is. There's a genuine connection there that they feel like they understand where you're coming from, and an authenticity. But in terms of what's different now, I think it goes back to, you have to build the platform to get the job. If you can go and get yourself, 1,000, 2,000 subscribers on YouTube, or 10,000 followers on TikTok, or that's something that you bring into the equation. I think, unfortunately, more and more, if you want to get one of these traditional jobs, which it seems like they're kind of going away anyway, but that's kind of separates you. You can say, hey, look, I've already shown that I can build an audience.
Right.
I don't need you to build an audience. I'd like to work for you, but I already have an audience of my own, and I bring that to the table. So I think that that's the biggest one that has certainly changed. There used to be far more rules. You can do this, you can't do this, you have to do this, you can't do that. I think that those walls are kind of breaking down, because, again, at the end of the day, it's all about authenticity.
Yeah.
Gordon, what's the best advice you've gotten? It's like
That's a good question.
coming up in
Best
the
advice that
business.
I've gotten. I don't know. I probably have to think about this more, a longer, deeper thing. I just think that at the end of the day, if you love doing this, just keep doing it. You know what I mean? Like, I think that that's the best, and it's not anything. It's not anything deep. But I think everybody kind of knows that. You just got to stick with it, and also, progress is not linear, right? Like, you don't start making things and all of a sudden the line just continues to go up. If you've done this type of stuff, it kind of goes up, it kind of goes down, it goes up, good. But you want to have that trend line always pointing upwards as opposed to pointing downwards. So I think that that's probably it. And a lot of times, you think, I got a piece of advice when I got let go from ESPN that I saw that kind of resonated with me. Sometimes you think you've been buried, but you've really been planted. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes that thing that you see as a failure is actually what's going to lead to your best opportunity. So I don't know necessarily that that's turned out to be the case as of yet. I hope it is. But I think that those are important things to keep in mind.
Yeah. You a baseball guy, Gordon?
Yeah, I love my Yankees. I'm a Yankee guy.
Oh, that's me and Top.
Sacrilege. You can't. I'm gonna get disconnected now. I'm gonna get the ejector.
No, not yet. No. We'll get you tape, but all right. Well, I guess we'll start on the Yankees. How do you feel about their offseason? It's been pretty.
It sucked.
It's been pretty shitty.
They do have a good team, but they decided to take the time of year where it's the time to improve your team, and they basically said, "No, we're good." You know what I mean? Like, they're just going to bring back essentially the same team, and they can tell you whatever they want, that they think they have a good team. This is all about the payroll, and I'm not one that thinks that Hal is cheap. Hal's spending enough money to put together a championship level team, but I think that what you're seeing is the end result of a chapter starting to close a little bit, right? Like, the Yankees opened up a new chapter in 2017 with a bunch of young players who came together, and they got to within a game of the World Series. And since that point, they've been trying to add to the mix and add what has been missing. So 2018, they add Stanton, they add Garrett Cole a couple of years later. They keep adding to this mix to try to push it over the top, and they've not been able to push it over the top. But the end result of that is now you're stuck with a lot of, and I'm not saying stuck as in these guys aren't good players, but you're just not going to have the maneuverability up against what, $320 million when you're giving out big contracts every single year. So this is not a case of the Yankees actually believe that they have a good team that doesn't need improvements. It's just they have no more resources to spend. Hal is going to cap it at a certain point. 320 seems like what it is, so they'll work on the margins. And unfortunately, they've done that here for the last couple of years. It's going to be tougher this year, but we'll see if it works. I still think they're going to have a good team. I still think they're going to be a playoff team. And as long as Aaron Judge continues to put up historic numbers, they should be in the playoffs. But, weird things happen.
I read yesterday that the Dodgers took in $754 million in revenue, and the Yankees were second, taking in $724 million. Again, why are you not putting that back into the team? Why aren't they spending like the Mets, like the Dodgers? Like, I don't understand. They're good. They're
this is interesting, and a lot of people don't realize this. I did an episode of my podcast, Gordon Damer on Sports, which is available anywhere you get your podcast, about why the Dodgers are different. So the Dodgers, based on their TV, they have the best TV deal in sports. They get $8 billion over 25 years from the deal that they made with Fox Sports LA. But based on the previous owner, Frank McCourt, his bankruptcy filing, that TV deal got locked in at a lower rate. So they don't have to share as much of that with baseball. That allows them to keep a larger share of their TV money than other teams like the Yankees. So that's a major advantage that they have in terms of spending money. They just have more of it. Also, the fact that they were able to get Ohtani and Yamamoto, all the Japanese investment goes basically to the Dodgers. It's hard to find exact numbers of how much money they've made based on just the Ohtani alone. But I saw one thing that floated the idea that they might have been able to make up his entire contract in 1 year based on just the Japanese investment. So they're not kicking in as much money to the revenue sharing as other teams. And that kind of allows and the fact that they have this TV deal allows them to have the ability to offer these deferred contracts because they know they're going to be making $334 million a year on the TV deal from now for I think it's another 12, 13 years. So that's not an issue. And then, the Yankees and the Mets are different as well because the Mets aren't making the money that the Dodgers are making, but they got Steve Cohen who doesn't care. He's out there spending the money. So it's three unique different situations. The Yankees are like the Dodgers, but the Dodgers, because of that bankruptcy filing with McCourt, they're able to save a whole lot more of their money, and it doesn't have to go into revenue sharing. And baseball hates it. They hate the Dodger deal, but they're unable to do anything about it. And I think that that's going to be a major problem when the CBA runs out on December 1st.
Yeah. Do you think next year we're going to get into that? That's my follow-up. You think there's going to be a work stoppage? Do you think there's going to be a salary cap?
Yep. Yes, I do.
I agree.
Hopefully the baseball owners don't try to push for a salary cap, because if they push for a salary cap, we won't have any baseball in 2027.
Right.
I know fans will. And the funny thing is that like fans are like, no, the Dodgers are a problem. We need to have a salary cap. But the Dodgers' problems are the owners have to figure out the Dodgers part of it. It's not up to the players to figure that out. I've said that the owners should just for the 9 years, say the next labor deal is 10 years. First 9 years, they should say, you know what, we're going to institute on ourselves a salary floor. Every team has to spend at least $100 million on payroll or whatever the number they want to make it. And then that 10th year, we're going to put in a cap that year. And we'll see how it impacts, and then we'll have another CBA after it. Maybe you would get the players to maybe agree that way, but the players are so unified against the cap. It's like a drop-dead thing, and it'll be like a nuclear winter if the owners try to force it.
Yeah, I listen. I think baseball almost has to have a salary cap, because if the Dodgers keep doing what they're doing, I mean, how can a team like Pittsburgh or how can they even compete? I mean, it's they're here, the Dodgers are here, even the Mets, like they got tons of money, but guys just want to go to the Dodgers. How do you compete with that? It's
like there's a thing to that, because You're also talking about owners from an organization like Milwaukee, an organization like Pittsburgh, who have the money to spend, but don't want to spend it. So there's a
They don't
part
have
of,
that
for
much money
example,
on top.
yes, for example, I'll give you a team. Detroit, the owner of the Detroit Tigers. He has not the equivalent to Steve Cohen money, but it's almost in that realm where he could go out there and at least put himself in the name of a Kyle Tucker. If he wanted to go out there and get a Bo Bichette, he could have. This is why people are kind of scared that they might not be able to pay Tyreek Skubal because of how they're running their team. The Tyreek Skubal is going to ask for most of the for the highest contract for a starting pitcher. There's no guarantee that Detroit's willing to pay that, unlike a
No.
big market who's willing
Well,
to be
well,
like, all
see,
right, I'll
I
just
mean,
give it to you.
the thing you have with Cohen and why Met fans are really lucky is he's a guy who's digging into his pocket, right? Like they're not
Yes.
making the money to. I mean, he's losing money on the Mets. I think
Yeah,
clearly based on the payroll.
they only made
Other
like 300 million last year.
Right.
Something like
Other
that.
owners
Right,
aren't digging into their pocket to pay for the player. You know, like they're gonna, whatever they make in terms of TV and tickets and revenue and merchandise, all that type of stuff, they'll spend a percentage of that, but they're not going
right,
to dig into their pockets like that. And there are
right,
problems with
exactly.
other owners, the small market owners who say, $50 million, I can keep my payroll at 70 and pocket that 50 million and I've made a profit. And that's at the end of the day what I'm
That's
doing. I'm a
it.
business. So it is really bad for the competitive balance of
Right.
baseball. But again, that's an owner thing. Like, why do the players have to fix the
Yeah.
owner's problems? Players got
Exactly.
their own problems.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh man. Ah.
It's
Ah.
like Milwaukee. Like again, Milwaukee's a perfect example. Milwaukee's ownership is basically looking at it from a standpoint of, hey, if we keep winning the division every year, I get sellout crowds almost every night. We keep making the playoffs, it benefits me.
Yep.
That's all they care about.
Yep.
Unlike teams like like Yankees to a certain extent, or the Mets, or the Dodgers, or the Padres, who are willing to not only pay what they got to pay, but give up certain guys in their farm to go get the better acquisition because they're like, no, we want to win. Like, I don't know what you guys are doing. You guys have got all this money. You guys don't want to win because you're just satisfied on the business aspect. But we actually want to put the players in there
Yeah, but I mean,
to
look at
actually
the
win.
Brewers. I mean, they just traded away their best pitcher or one of their best pitchers to the Mets because they knew in a year they're not going to be able to afford it. I don't think that that's good for the sport either. So,
And they
Right.
won the most games in baseball.
yeah.
This is
Right.
you're the number one seed in baseball, and
Yep.
you trade your star pitcher. I
Mhm.
never understood that. That's why I kept on saying, why would the Brewers trade this guy? He's their best pitcher. They had the best record. It makes no sense to me. With that said, Gordon, what do you think about the Mets offseason? I know me and Top are very happy about it.
Yeah.
What do you see?
Look, I think that clearly that David Stearns, more so than building the current team, wanted to break up that old core. There was some, again, I don't know what the issue was and who the issues were with, but clearly there was an issue between some guys that were there for long periods of time, and he wanted to bust that up and start fresh. So I really like the Mets off season. I would have liked Diaz and Devin Williams as opposed to Devin Williams and Luke Weaver. I would have probably liked to maybe add another starting pitcher somewhere along the line because there is no budget. But in terms of what they did, I kind of like it. We'll see. The idea that was floated that David Stearns never had a plan when he let Pete go. I mean, that Pete not re-signing Pete broke a lot of Met fans' brains. Like they
Yes.
just started, spouting things were ridiculous about Steve Cohen only cares about the casino and David
Yeah.
Stearns is dumb and there is no plan and they're not going to replace any. Obviously, they're still going to spend money. Now, you might not like the plan. There's certain aspects of the plan I like. I really like Bo Bichette. I think he's going to have a monster season. I'm targeting him in all my fantasy baseball leagues this year for sure. I'm not as sold on maybe Luis Robert hitting 38 home runs again. But, if he can play some solid defense in center field and steal a couple of bases, considering what they had in center field before, I'll live with that. And I really like Freddie Peralta. So I think the Mets have had a solid offseason, and I think that they're a 90-win team. And I think
Wow.
to me, they're the favorites to win the National League East. Now, I have not really dove into it all that much as of yet, but I'm a little skeptical about Philly. You got Wheeler coming off that surgery where a lot of pitchers are just never the same. Where they remove the rib and stuff like that. That's really scary to me. I think you started to see Bryce Harper last year start to hit a little bit of a decline phase a little bit. So I think, and the Phillies, I think they've had a disappointing offseason losing Bo Bichette to the Mets. So
and they lost their top starter and they lost their closer.
Yeah, yeah. So they have some holes to fill there. Absolutely. Now, look, they're a good organization, but Dombrowski is a guy that comes in and wins right away, and sometimes a few years down the road, you start to see the warts of that kind of win now mentality. So I think the Mets are in good shape. Are they a perfect team? Did they close the gap on the Dodgers? No, but nobody closed the gap on the Dodgers. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like the Knicks in the finals. Get me to the finals, and I'll figure it out from there. Get me to the National League Championship Series if I'm the Mets against the Dodgers, and I'll figure it out from there.
Right, you'll be happy. I mean, look, Toronto came this close to knocking the Dodgers out.
Absolutely. And the year before, the Dodgers should have lost to the Padres. Padres had 2 games at home, couldn't score a run. So, Dodgers are not. And look, we watch sports. We know that these teams that are supposed to be infallible sometimes don't win. The Patriots had the perfect regular season, lost to the Giants. The Warriors won 73 games, didn't win the championship. So, the Dodgers are really good. They're the odds-on favorite, but baseball is weird. So if they don't win, it would not shock me in the least.
Yeah, super teams don't always win in baseball. It's not like basketball where KD, Steph, and those guys, you're done. And LeBron, you're going to be in the finals. We know it, before the season. It's not like that. Baseball is different. Like, again, Barry Bonds, the best player I ever saw, he never won a World Series, although he played great in the one World Series I saw him in. Baseball's different. You could put it like the last super team to me that won was the 2009 Yankees. Not counting the Dodgers. You know what I'm saying? So it's weird. It's not automatic to win.
Nope.
In baseball.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, we'll see where they go. But Gordon, man, thank you so much for hopping on. I cannot thank you enough.
Absolutely, anytime.
Why don't you tell everybody where they could find you? All that stuff.
Well, based on this snow that we're getting this weekend, you're going to find me in my house. No, Friday morning, I'm on the Fan 2 to 5. And then you can get my podcast, which is available anywhere you get your podcasts, including YouTube, Gordon Damer on Sports. So that's what I got for right now. And then, every week we kind of add another thing to the puzzle. Friday, I should have a new episode of the podcast out. But, it's been doing okay, so we're hanging in there.
You do it, and it's on YouTube and all.
It's on YouTube. Yeah, you'll see my ugly mug. But if you want to watch it on, listen to it on Spotify or Apple, wherever you want to get it, you can get it there too.
Hey, Gordon, you still got a good head of hair, man. I'll see.
I do. I got the hat on, but it's still good. It might be gray, but it's staying. That's all that matters.
Gordon, thank you so much for having me.
All right, guys.
Appreciate it, man. Nice to meet you.
Nice to talk to you.
You too. It was great having him. I got it. That was
fun. That was fun, man. He looks like a genuine dude.
Yeah, man. He's New York. He's New York. He knows about all the teams. He's at WFAN. It was good to have on and, kick it with some Knicks. We talked about every single thing you can possibly talk about.
Of course. No, of course.
Mets. I was going to play Mike Brown. The only thing is if I play him, I have to take us off YouTube, though. That's the only thing.
Oh, you have us on YouTube right now?
I have us on YouTube. So,
I only got my thing on X because of that. But, hey, listen, up to you, man.
Let me remove
everybody that's on YouTube, make sure you guys go to